There's no such thing as magic. So how can we tackle traffic congestion? Electronic road pricing is a possible way. It's already used in some overseas cities. Motorists pay to use roads in charging areas during specified times. The government has launched a public engagement exercise for a pilot scheme in Central. Your views are welcome.
It's been a phenomenally complex film to produce.
The challenge of capturing the grandeur of the pterosaur.
Oh, that is magnificent.
Tuesday, making David Attenborough's Flying Monsters at 9:30 on Pearl Spectacular. Challenge or punishment later tonight. Dakar Rally 2016 daily highlights at this time on Pearl.
Chief Executive calls for more time in missing booksellers case. Drumming up last-minute support ahead of tomorrow's Taiwan elections. And Indonesia arrests 3 suspects in Jakarta terror attack. Good evening. Chief Executive Leung insists mainland authorities should be given time to respond to the case of the missing booksellers. He also talked about concerns over his latest policy address. Winnie Wong tells us more.
The CE was grilled on a radio show 2 days after his 2016 policy address. When asked about his low approval ratings, Leung Chun-ying said as a leader, he sometimes needs to make unpopular choices.
You were unpopular when you became chief executive, and you've become less popular.
Was I unpopular?
Very.
I do not seek popularity when it's a choice of between popularity and producing actual results, and particularly
there's a price to pay, though, if you don't have that popularity.
Critics argue that his policy address was aimed at pleasing Beijing, paving the way for a second term as CE next year.
Well, I have my own views, and it's up to other candidates as to how they conduct themselves.
I know you haven't made an announcement, but just then you were talking as if you're a candidate yourself. You said the other candidates.
No. It was a general question. I definitely wasn't answering your question.
I know, I didn't answer that, but you spoke in the way that you had assumed you are a candidate. You referred to other candidates.
I was a candidate.
When will it be appropriate for you to decide whether you'll seek a second term? I said when, I'm not saying...
Not today.
One caller asked Leung if it would be different had he been elected through universal suffrage back in 2012.
I was the most popular candidate amongst the 3 candidates. If it was a universal suffrage, I would have been elected the same way.
On the disappearance of 5 booksellers, Leung has been accused of not doing enough to follow up on the case. It's been suggested that one of them, Li Bo, was taken away by mainland security personnel operating in Hong Kong. Today, Leung insisted he's taking the case seriously, but that people should give mainland authorities time to respond.
14 days after a report has been made to the police, and there were cases in the past where it took more than 14 days.
Winnie Wong, TVB News.
And on housing, Secretary for Development Paul Chan stressed today the government will stick to its supply target. However, he admitted it will be difficult to meet the goal when it comes to public and subsidized housing. Rani Samtani reports.
Secretary for Development Paul Chan today further explained proposals unveiled in the latest policy address. Chan reiterated the government's plans to identify more sites to generate an additional 17,000 units, of which 90% will be public or subsidized housing. He refuted accusations that the government has inflated its targets, but Chan admitted that it's going to be difficult to meet the 10-year goal for public and subsidized housing.
Because some of the lands, some of the parcels of the land that we have identified do have difficulties in terms of engineering, in terms of local consultation. So there are slippage affecting the projected outturn. But we are still working very hard on that.
2 years ago, the government identified 150 sites that need to be rezoned for housing. Chan said the 63 applications were submitted to the Town Planning Board for approval. Dozens were approved, while 3 were rejected. He claimed it's not realistic to complete all the land rezoning within this term of government. However, he stressed that the government will supply land according to its target, and that will not change. Ronnie Samtani, TVB News.
Police are still investigating the bomb hoax at the Legislative Council last night. No arrests have been made so far. As Ronnie Samtani reports, the incident has raised questions about whether security should be beefed up at the complex.
It was business as usual at the Legislative Council this morning. Despite last night's bomb threat, there was no visible change to security measures. Visitors were allowed in after going through regular security checks, and school tours were held as normal. The LegCo Secretariat today gave a report on the bomb threat at the House Committee meeting.
Around 5:50 p.m., we received an email alleging that there was a bomb within this complex. We reported the case to the police, and our security personnel immediately checked out on the public toilets because the email said that the bomb was within the toilet. We worked together with the police, and then we conducted search starting from the ground floor upwards.
Police and security staff searched the entire premises but didn't find anything suspicious. Officers have classified the case as a bomb hoax. Chen said police will continue investigating and will try to trace the source of the email. The LegCo Commission will meet next Tuesday to discuss the issue. Insurance sector lawmaker Chan Kin-por said the situation cannot be taken lightly given what happened in Jakarta yesterday. He also noted that current security measures are pretty lax.
In most of the other countries' parliament, they all require security check for everyone. So we should really look at it and see whether we should follow the same rule as well.
But another lawmaker says there's no need to overreact.
We are proud of the fact that the Legislative Council is one of the most open and transparent institutions in Hong Kong. There's no need to rush to any conclusion that we have to impose compulsory security check on every individual coming to this building.
Kenneth Chan said he was having a meeting inside the building last night but was not made aware of the threat. He said there is room for improvement in the Secretariat's procedures. Ronnie Samtani, TVB News.
In Taiwan, last-minute campaigning was in full swing ahead of tomorrow's elections. The presidential candidates were out in force today. Democratic Progressive Party's Tsai Ing-wen set off from her home at Taichung. Tsai has been renting a home there for the past few years to show how much Taichung means to her. This part of the island has always been a key battleground for support for both the blue and green camps. Today, Tsai met her supporters along with Taichung Mayor Leung. The election is being closely watched by other countries and regional power brokers, such as the United States. There are reports former U.S. Deputy Secretary of State William Burns will go to Taipei to meet with outgoing President Ma Ying-jeou and his successor after tomorrow's election. In response to this, Tsai says she's glad Washington wants to cooperate with the new government. She also said if elected, she will maintain the status quo across the Taiwan Strait and work towards cross-strait peace and prosperity. Eric Chu of the ruling Kuomintang, who's focusing on drumming up support in the Taipei area and the island's north, echoed that sentiment. Chu said if he's elected, he will ensure a peaceful relationship with the mainland as well as stability in the region. The outgoing president also weighed in. In a video posted online, Ma defended the KMT's policies, even though they have been criticized for not being thorough enough. Ma said he's willing to bear responsibility and reflect on that. The president also said if Chu is elected as his successor, the KMT candidate will learn from his mistakes and do a better job than him. As for James Song of the People's First Party, who's third in the opinion polls, he's focused on seeking support in Changhua. Indonesian police say yesterday's brazen attack in downtown Jakarta that left 7 people dead was funded by the Islamic State group. 3 men were arrested outside Jakarta this morning, and one suspected militant was killed in a gun battle with police in central Sulawesi and raids across the country. Alan Bookner reports.
5 men attacked a Starbucks cafe and a traffic police booth with handmade bombs, guns, and suicide belts. Of the 7 people dead, 5 were the attackers, killed either by their suicide belts or by police. Early this morning, Indonesian police arrested 3 people on the outskirts of the capital on suspicion of links to the plot. An Indonesian police spokesman said they've confirmed that those responsible for the assault are affiliated to Islamic State. 2 of the 5 attackers had previously been imprisoned for terrorism offenses. 1 had an Islamic State flag at his home. The spokesman added that security will be increased at airports, embassies, police stations, and places foreigners frequent. Of the 2 civilians killed, 1 was Canadian and the other Indonesian. It's the first time Islamic State has targeted the world's most populous Muslim nation. In recent years, Indonesian anti-terror forces have been successful in stamping out another extremist organization called Jemaah Islamiyah. That group was responsible for the 2002 bombing in Bali that left more than 200 people dead, and the 2009 hotel bombing in Jakarta that killed 7 people. Terrorism experts believe Islamic State supporters in Indonesia are drawn from the remnants of Jemaah Islamiyah. Indonesian President Joko Widodo today visited the area of the attacks. He declared that things had quickly returned to normal for the nearby businesses, and that was important. Meanwhile, the area around Starbucks remains cordoned off with a heavy police presence. Some people left flowers with messages that say, "Pray for Jakarta" and "Indonesia Unite." Alan Bookner, TVB News.
14 people were killed and 27 others injured after the bus careened off a mountain road this morning in central Japan. Officials say the bus veered into the opposite lane in Nagano Prefecture, rammed through a guardrail, and slid down the mountainside a short distance. The chartered bus was carrying 41 people. The World Health Organization officially declared an end to the Ebola outbreak in West Africa yesterday. But that may prove premature when just hours later, Sierra Leone confirmed an Ebola-related death. Health workers are monitoring 27 people who had contact with the victim. Sonia Arter reports.
Global health experts thought it was safe to say the deadliest Ebola outbreak on record was over, especially after no new cases had emerged for 42 days.
WHO declares the end of the most recent outbreak of Ebola virus disease in Liberia, the outbreak that was associated with the flare-up of cases in mid-November. It's also the first time that all 3 countries in West Africa, Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Liberia, have stopped all known chains of transmission of the disease since the outbreak started in 2014.
Warning flare-ups of the virus is still high became a reality today, and a person who died in Sierra Leone tested positive for Ebola. This is why experts have cautioned people not to be complacent and explain just how contagious the disease is.
The virus can persist in the body fluids of a proportion of survivors. Most importantly, it can persist in the semen of male survivors for a period of up to 12 months. And what this means is that